Dusty, snap out of it!
Any of this look familiar?
Our constellation contact is on approach.
Yeah, but come on. Exploring space? Who does that anymore? Ain't the space we've already got complicated enough?
Welcome aboard the Starfield Report podcast. Join us as we journey through the stars.
Hello, space travelers. This is Kenneth Smyson with host Jax Wiley. How you doing, Jax?
Doing great this morning.
All right, and this is our first episode of the podcast. And we're just going to kind of keep the conversation light today. We're going to focus on our background with Bethesda franchise games and then get in a little bit of Starfield content. So we're going to hop right on into it. So, Jax, tell us about your history with with Bethesda.
I started with Morrowind. My stepson was playing a video game one day, and I happened to walk by and see it, and he was killing some Ridge Riders, I think, the birds in Morrowind, and it caught my attention, and so I started playing Morrowind back in 2001, and I've been playing Bethesda games ever since.
Nice. Mine was actually Oblivion. I didn't hop on the board with the Morrowind train because I had not even heard about Morrowind. I think that was that PC when it initially launched, and eventually it became an Xbox. Yeah. And so in my case, I was just at the GameStop, probably there to pre-order something, and I saw the magazine. It was probably an Xbox magazine, and I saw the screenshots and the pictures of Oblivion, and I was like, "Oh, that's really cool background." And the guy's like, "Yeah, you can walk up to the top of that mountain." I'm like, "What?" You know, because my thought process up to this point on RPGs was Zelda, right? So the whole idea of an open world was pretty foreign to me as a gamer. I mean, because in early 2000s or mid 2000s, I was all about Halo and Call of Duty and some of those games. And so I immediately pre-ordered Oblivion. And when that game came out, I was totally blown away with how massive it was, exploring all the dungeons. And I enjoyed the quests and stuff to a certain extent. But just that sense of exploration, I can just take off and do my own thing and live my own character. Although in my case, in my first Oblivion character, I was Nord, and I did every single quest with him, which from a character roleplay standpoint was a little absurd. So subsequent Bethesda games, I like to create new characters for each quest line or whatnot, and just have a different flavor of the game, which helps me get a lot more out of the game. And have you had much? How much Fallout experience have you had?
So it went Morrowind, and then I think Oblivion, and Fallout 3.
Yep.
And Skyrim. Then Fallout 4. Then more Skyrim. And then more Skyrim. And then 76 I played for 2 or 3 years.
Okay. Yeah, that pretty much follows the same track. I mean, as I started to fade out of other games, other companies, and not to say other games aren't fun. I just, with my limited amount of time and my love for the open world setting, I just, especially since getting married and having a kid, my gaming time is limited. So I'm just locked in as a Bethesda fanboy, for better or worse.
That's exactly where I'm at. It's just, I've tried to play multiplayer games like WoW and Clan Wars, I think it was, or something like that. And I have a difficult time setting in with a group because I have a very slow, methodical game style. I want to turn over every rock. I want to open every drawer. I want to look underneath every bed, behind every corner. And usually when you're with the team, they want to rush forward and get to the boss. And I'm just not that kind of player. So Bethesda games fit me really, really well.
Agreed. That's very similar to my playstyle as well. Thankfully, the friends I do play online with, let's see, we played like EVE Online. We played a little bit of World of Warcraft. We played a lot of Guild Wars. They're not super fast paced, and they're a little faster than me. So thankfully, it wasn't too bad of an experience playing multiplayer. But EVE Online. Did you ever play that one? That was a space one. Yeah.
No, I didn't get into that.
Yeah, EVE Online, came out probably close to 20 years ago. I got real big into it around 2007, 2008. And the sense of scale, because of literally an entire galaxy being available to you and all the planets and moons, I really missed playing that. But I eventually reached my point where it was just too methodical of a game. You never are out of your ship. You're always in your ship. They eventually introduced this thing where your character could walk around like a little captain's quarters, like at a space station or something like that, but without being able to get up and just walk around as a person, and in some cases just look up at the ship you made. You're always seeing it. Well, most of the ships you don't make. There's a Tech 1 and Tech 2 ships, which are just, this is what it is. You change the modules, your weapons on it, but physically there's no change to it. The Tech 3 ships were like these modular ships where you could rearrange the parts, like the fuselage, as it were, but it nowhere near what the shipbuilding capability that Starfield has in it, for example. And so eventually I did kind of get bored of the game, and I don't think I played any other space related game until Starfield. So let's segue now into Starfield. So do you remember the first teaser trailer? Did you happen to watch that, the Bethesda at E3 when they dropped that teaser? What was your kind of experience when they announced that?
I was excited, but I wanted more. It didn't tell me anything. It was just, okay, there's a world, and looks like maybe that's a space station back there in the background. If that's all you got, it was enough to get you excited, but you're like, okay, now what are we really looking at? What is this? And it was funny that for like a month after that, how many people dissected that 15 seconds and all the different ways they came at it and zoomed everything in, and it seems like people found a lot out that I would have never thought to look at. But still, I was like, that's not enough for me. What is going on here? But yeah, I watched it on that E3 when it first came out, and I was so excited about a new Bethesda game, space game. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah, same here. That was, I think I had heard they were going to do a space game, probably just prior. And then when I saw that trailer come out, I just got excited because at that point it was confirmed. Bethesda in space. And because then you've got your fantasy with Elder Scrolls. You've got your, post-apocalyptic setting with, granted, Fallout is a little zany at times, but if you want to kind of play it as a more grounded, using your ballistic guns and your rifles, you kind of get that good feel. But then to go out in space and to explore, because there's, to a certain extent, there's almost a measure of depression when I play Fallout, because it's like, man, the world's totally gone to shit. But with Starfield, just that sense of exploration was just so exciting to me. And one of my good friends, Kurter, he has this thing with games and movies. Once he's already sold, even if he just hears the title and he's like, oh, I'm definitely going to play that, or, oh, I'm definitely going to watch that movie, he just avoids every single trailer. And I've never done that before. I try to avoid spoilers, but I'll usually watch every trailer and showcase, E3 event, and so on. But for Starfield, I made a decision to do it like he does it. And it was so difficult to avoid everything about Starfield up to its release. And but I did, and I think it paid off, because that sense of being a space explorer was was huge. Like avoiding everything about the game made it so every time I learned something new, it was truly an exciting experience in that first year of playing Starfield.
Yeah, I'm kind of go almost the opposite of that. I'm a very goal oriented and time sensitive player, and so, like I said, I crawl through the game, so I don't mind watching YouTube videos that say, "Hey, the best gun's over here, the best armor's over there. Go get it over there. When you start, don't worry about running down this trail. Go over to the left, look underneath this pillow, find a good gun, and that'll get you, to level 5 through." So I don't mind spoilers because watching a spoiler and then experiencing it myself for me is really two different things.
Oh, that
So
makes
I
sense.
enjoy it.
So talking about the spoilers and finding things under a rock is a good segue into just talking about the game in general. What do you like about the combat? What do you like about the exploration? All that stuff.
It's what I like, I think, the most about it is it's familiar to me. I can jump right in and go, okay, I know what I'm doing. If you've not played the other Bethesda games, you may not feel that. But if you've played Fallout 4 and Skyrim and you get into this setting, it automatically feels comfortable. You're like, okay, I know how these guys think, how they develop a game. So I understand what it is that is expected of me as a player. So it makes it really easy to get into it. And if you realize that, then you realize that you can find adventure so many different ways with these Bethesda games. It doesn't have to be the main quest. It doesn't have to be any quest.
Exactly. That's how I feel about it, and that's why I do kind of remain in the Bethesda fanboy camp, for better or worse. With my limited gaming time, at least I know when a new Bethesda game comes out, I know what to expect, and I can hop right into it. And yeah, sure, it's kind of basically got a different skin. I mean, you go from playing as a Dragonborn in Skyrim to the Starborn, right, in the Starfield. So it's very different in some ways, but also very familiar. And the combat, I don't know, like I don't tend to use the powers too much, honestly. But one of these days, I probably will play kind of role play a Jedi or a Sith just to think to constantly use my powers and really have fun with them.
Yeah, I keep 2 or 3 on my hotkey. Since I'm on controller, I've got access to 3. Well, you could do more than that, but I set one side of my what do you call it, the D-pad, and there's 3 buttons there, and I set that up for powers, and that's all I ever use. I can either do my personal, what is it here, personal atmosphere, right? Or there's 2 other ones but I don't hardly ever use them. Oh, it's the one where you could see living things, star stuff.
Oh, I don't think they use star stuff at all, actually. But you're right. Personal atmosphere is definitely on my hotkey because all the running I do. I like the first power you get, the gravity one, because it's absolutely hilarious to hit that. Or you can do this in 0G, and if you disable a grav drive before you board an enemy ship, and throw mines, proximity mines, they just float like a frisbee straight towards the enemies, and the enemies are just helpless floating there, and it detonates.
Okay, you just said something that I've never understood. What determines if there's gravity on a ship you're boarding or not? Are you telling me that if I completely destroy their grav drive, that makes the ship 0G, but if I don't, then it's got gravity?
I'm 99% sure that's the case. Now, I don't ever intentionally disable the grav drive. I always, go into target, because they never jump away, ever. So I go in and I'll target the engines to disable them. However, as you're shooting at the engine, depending on how the ship is facing, I think if the grav drive is physically taking hits and it is destroyed, I think, at that point it's disabled, and you're able to that's how you enter a ship without zero G. I'll have to test that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of zero G combat. I mean, it's part of the game, and I'll play it. It's not that big a deal. But if I had a preference, I'd rather fight with gravity.
Agreed. Yeah. It's when I'm caught off guard going into it, especially because I like ballistic weapons, and I think they have more recoil and kick you back harder than laser. I'm not as big of a fan of the zero G, but it's fun sometimes. Like you play. Do you play on Xbox or PC?
Xbox.
Okay, so yeah, I play on PC, but I'm one of those weird players that likes to use a gamepad, which to some extent is a little limiting. But when I'm playing a flying game, having the controller with the analog, sticks or joysticks, little thumbsticks, is huge for me to be able to fly around. And so yeah, for example, on the D-pad, like I'll have my top three be my three weapons, and that's all I use. My three on the right will be, I like to put my cutter there so I don't accidentally sell it, so it's favorited there. And then I'll put a couple outfits. My three down ones will be my med packs and some other stems, or actually the T to get my 2% XP. And then left will be three powers, which is personal atmosphere, the gravity one, and what was the other one I always use? I think it depends on the character, because I did start up a assassin character, and so I'll eventually start using the invisibility thing with her.
Right. Mine's almost the same way. Three weapons to the top. I have food to the left on my D-pad, three powers to the right on my D-pad, and all of my three healing stim packs for I can't remember what they're called. Your healing stuff. It's not stim packs, but that's what we call it anyway.
Yeah, it's fun how we tend to mix up the lingo when we're jumping from one Bethesda game to the next. But yeah, I really like the sense of exploration in the game. Although I think we'll probably do an episode like what if it were better, where we just maybe nitpick the game a little bit much, because while I do love Starfield, there's definitely some things about it I wish they would have done different. Mainly for that episode, it's like, but by the time the events of Starfield come out or happen, the galaxy's already been explored, and so in a way, you don't really feel like the first explorer. So I think there's a way they could have done that differently, which we can deep dive into a special episode where we do just kind of criticize the game for fun.
Oh yeah, it's the farthest flung planets in the game, the ones way out there, and you finally get there at level 40 or 50 or however long it takes you to get way to the other side of the map, and you get there and you land, and there's like 5 stations around. You're like, oh, people have all been here. This place is,
Yeah, I have found a couple planets way to the east that when I would land, there was no sign of humans before. I mean, those are like the level, I think, 70 planets and stuff like that. So that does make it a little more exciting when you land there. But then you got to be careful, because if you want to build an outpost on one of those planets, and you might have some high level stuff there. And I don't know if the creatures would ransack your base like super mutants do in Fallout 76, but yeah. And plus I've had a hard time with those, finding good looking planets out there, like the ones that are ideal for humans, like Cassiopeia, which is north, well, not literally northwest, but when you're looking at the map, it was like up and to the left from the Sol system and the Alpha system. The Cassiopeia, one of the planets there, is this beautiful beach line with it's technically coniferous, but it doesn't look too much like a pine tree. It looks beautiful beaches and whatnot, but that's already like a well-established planet. There's outposts and other bases on it, so it's kind of sad that a lot of the further high-level planets that seemingly or are supposed to be unexplored are just not as pretty of a place to set up. I mean, who knows? I mean, I definitely have not landed on all the planets yet, and so who knows? I might find that one.
Yeah, and I think maybe maybe that's something that Bethesda has in their back pocket. You know what I mean? Because they've said they're going to support this game for years to come. They got to have something that's going to draw people in. So if they say, "Hey, we've, in the newest DLC that we're bringing out, we've got, 8 more suns with planets for you to discover that nobody's been to yet." And so you've got these like prehistoric planets where they've got maybe some dinosaurs on it and beautiful mountains and, like you say, carnivorous. Or how do you say that word? The forest.
Coniferous. It's a weird word.
Yeah.
Yeah, your
But they,
evergreens, your pine trees and cedar trees, those kind of looking things.
Yeah. So they, maybe that's something that they've got planned in the future, but it's hard to say. I get to stay busy with as much as I do with this game as it is. Have you looked at your? Oh, you don't play on Xbox. Every year, Xbox does a thing that says your year end review, and it shows you your hours for all the different games you've played and how long every game. And I was looking at mine, and there's like 3 games on there. There's a game called Wizardry that's an old school game that I put in a few hours in. Stalker 2, which just came out, and I've got a few hours in. And then there's like 900 hours on Starfield. And I'm like, wow.
I play through Steam. I'm pretty sure there's a way I could look at my stats like that. I haven't done that just yet. But 900 hours, that's pretty impressive. I mean, I probably only have a couple hundred. 'Cause I have my main character, which is my space trucker. I do most of the stuff on him. And then I created my second character, which is a combat medic. And with him, I have the intent to never go through the Unity, just because I want to keep all the ships. And I'm doing internal decorations on the ships, in which I definitely don't want to go through the Unity. So I've completely avoided the main quest. In fact, as a joke, there's one of the mods I have adds a lot of decorations to the game, and they have the Constellation briefcase, which I think is where like the watch might go or something like that. And so I put that on the navigation console in one of my character's recent ship, the Corvette I made for him, my combat medic. And I put it on the navigation console as a joke because like I'm never going to do the main quest, and so I'm just going to sit there and just never doing it. As soon as I was free to leave the Constellation people, my character was like, all right, good luck with all that, people. And that's a good segue to getting into our characters. So how many characters do you have? Do you like to play with one, or do you like to role play with multiple?
I've got 2 characters, and I only started a second character because I thought, well, when we get the podcast going, I'll have a second character that I can roll through the game as we do the podcast and we do episodes. Then I'll have this second character. But I've stayed with pretty much one character. His name's Eldon Leroy. He's French. And level 148. Been through the Unity twice, so he's on NG+2. The other character, what is his name? It's Jax Perro, like the dog. So if you say it fast, it sounds like Jax Perro.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my first character is a space trucker, and because it's set in our future, I mean, because Fallout's kind of an alternate universe. I think in Fallout lore, I think World War I happens the way it does, but I think World War II does not happen, because I think the difference between Fallout world and our world is that they never invent transistors in the Fallout universe, and I think that was the deviation, right? Where that's the timeline split. So anyways, with Starfield being basically our future, I decided, you know what, I'm going to role play myself, which trying to make all the decisions in the context of that world, the world of Starfield, make decisions based on what I would do. And I definitely discovered a little kind of like a slightly dark streak to me, but I think once you view the galaxy with depopulation having occurred because of the disaster of the Earth, and that's why I don't get too bent out of shape when there's not these vastly populated worlds, because I'm pretty sure if I understand the lore right, a lot of people died when the Earth collapsed. I mean, they weren't able to evacuate everybody, right? So there was a massive population drop when that occurred. And so when I go to New Atlantis, and it's supposed to be the huge city, and it looks like it, it's really not that physically big, just a few skyscrapers, okay, there's probably a few thousand people living there. And then, anyways, it's like the wild, wild west when you're out in space. And so I realized, well, there is no official law enforcement. I mean, sure, the SysDef is there, but you're kind of on your own, and so it is like the wild, wild west.
Right. And that's when you start to realize that I'm not as pristine morally white as I thought I was. I'm more of a light gray morally. I try to do the right thing, but sometimes I need that ammunition that's over in the corner, and I'm just going to go ahead and take that.
Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes you're like, I really do need that. So with me, I'm more libertarian in my beliefs, and so I try to bring that into the game, and so I'm just live and let live. Everybody's good, but if you threaten me or you threaten my people, we're going to have some problems. And so it's been fun kind of learning a little bit more about myself of like, oh, this is how I would actually be if I was in like the wild, wild west. And then of course in real life, I've been a commercial driver for 20 years. And so that's why I wanted to play as the space trucker. They call that background long hauler, but then they refer to it as space trucker in the description. They should have just called it space trucker because that's what everybody else calls it anyways. But then let's see. So I did space trucker with the Freestar native, which I did that one because at a quick glance, not knowing anything about it, it kind of seems to be like what my rebellious little spirit would prefer to be with them. But then you realize that Freestar space is kind of a shithole. And like, why is Aquila City always just muddy?
Yeah, a lot of dirt. And you're, like you said, when you first start out, you're like, yeah, this fits my libertarian attitude perfectly. It's freedom, live and let live. There's not a over forceful law like there is in New Atlantis. New Atlantis is more of a community type. Everybody's got to live together, so we got to get along. We got to follow the rules. Everybody's got the rules to follow. You've got your place, and the Freestar is kind of the opposite of that. Just come and go as you please. Go over on the other side of the planet, make your own space.
Yeah, exactly. So I did. Let's see. So I did Freestar. I did Spaced. So because I figured if I'm a space trucker, I'm out in space a lot, that would have a positive and negative impact. And so I do like, it's more challenging to be in combat on the ground because of that. I think it's like a 20% loss of combat effectiveness, basically. Then what was I can't remember my third trait I picked.
I think mine, I was the soldier. So I made sure I had a little bit of combat so I could use weapons, pilot, and jetpack, because that was the three things in getting ready for the game that I watched some videos and was like, okay, these are important. I need to make sure I get these on the ground level so I can function as a character in the game right off the bat. So I think that's where my guy started with the what he picked. But his side things, the fan, the adoring fan, that is one of the best companions of the game. He's hilarious. He doesn't care what you do. He's not judgmental. He's got wonderful lines that he throws in there for you whenever you're wandering around.
Yeah, fun thing about the adoring fan is he's voiced by did we call him the Hero Worship? So the adoring fan was that character in Oblivion, if you remember that, and he's the little elf that looked like a little man child, just followed you around. So yeah, my combat medic character. I took him, and it is fun because I think he counts. He doesn't go against. Oh no, he is a crew member, so he does take up a slot when you assign him to your ship. But yeah, I did it on one character. I'm glad I did, but I'm definitely not going to choose him on any other character.
I think you can have him as a follower, but don't assign him to your crew. And then he's on your ship, but he doesn't take up a slot. Just like
okay.
Andrasia, but don't assign her to your ship. She's on your spaceship with you because she's your companion, but
Yeah,
she doesn't.
exactly.
So it depends on if you assign them or don't assign them to your ship. As long as you have them as your companion, you've talked to them and said, "Hey, yeah, follow me." Then they'll be on your ship, but they don't take up a slot. And I think that goes with most of them.
Yeah, that is the case. And in fact, you just have to be careful if you want to switch to a different follower for if maybe you want to do their quest, and if your current follower is not assigned to the ship, then they'll disappear back to wherever you can retrieve them whenever.
Yeah, you left them behind. Whoops.
Yeah, and Sarah's now your max crew capacity is 8, but technically, I think you can get up to, well, physically on your ship, you can get to 11. Well, no, 10, because if you fill up 8, and then you assign Sarah. For some reason, she's got that glitch. She doesn't go against the account numbers. You can always have her on any ship above your limit. And then if you have, so that puts you at 9. Then if you have Sam, you automatically have Cora on your ship, which puts you at 10. So then, yeah, if you have a follower that's not assigned to the ship but just with you, then that puts you at 11 people total on the ship, which definitely on larger ships, when you have a lot of habs, it helps to just feel a little less lonely and dead. So
yeah, it feels alive a little more. Yeah, and Sarah's got one of her traits is leadership, and that's what gives her the 0 cost for a crewmate is her leadership trait.
Oh, I thought it was a glitch. I didn't realize it was actually a part of her thing. I don't hate her like a lot of players do, but she just isn't too interesting to me. Her story was actually, I think, one of the better stories when you do her personal little loyalty quest mission. It was definitely good story wise, but I don't know. I usually will roll with Andrasia or Barrett.
That's what I started with Andrasia and went through the whole thing and married her and went through the whole marriage, quest line for her. But then when mods came out, I started downloading some of the mod companions, which they've got a glitch right now where there's not voice or mouth animations for them. They still have all the lines. They still have a bunch of audio lines, but their mouths don't move. So if that bothers you, you got to kind of ignore it or maybe not use one, but I like it.
Well, you can just keep them in a spacesuit at all times, or find some kind of let's see, there's some outfit pieces that you can just cover their face, so that way, yeah,
like a band-aid piece.
Exactly, yeah. So my third trait I remembered on my my space trucker is kid stuff. So then my parents are there, and so I like that idea. Although the one thing that I had to try to get right in my head canon on the game is when you choose kid stuff, your parents are UC citizens and they have their apartment in New Atlantis. But I didn't realize that, and I chose Freestar Citizen. So I was like, how am I going to wrestle with that? Like, especially since I'm role playing myself, and like, I guess I don't know. I didn't quite make sense of it myself, other than maybe we were all Freestar, but then after the war, like, because I think the mom in the game is like a teacher, and the dad retired from whatever, or the dad was the teacher, something like that, and they retired. So I figured it may be post-war, even though we were all Freestar, people. Maybe my parents are just really, good pacifists, and they just want to go and help rebuild humanity, and so they become UC citizens out of a sense of, diplomacy or something like that. So it would have been neat if they had some of the traits able to adjust based on which other ones you picked. So if you did pick kid stuff and you have parents, then maybe those parents take up one of the houses, because there's 2 houses in Aquila you can buy. There's the larger one and the smaller one. So maybe like just a trade-off is if you choose Freestar and kid stuff, you lose one of those houses as an option to buy because your parents live there.
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, or maybe when you get to the age of adulthood, you decide that the constraints of New Atlantis and living under your parents' roof is a little bit much. And so it's off to the wild, wild west of Aquila City. And you get there and become a citizen of Freestar at 18 years old or 17 years old or something. And that's how your background starts out from there.
Yeah, that would certainly work, kind of. Although some of the dialogue options wouldn't quite fit that, because there's times when you talk when you choose the Freestar option in dialogue, it talks about being a kid as a Freestar. So, I mean, but that's all just, that obviously has no effect on the game on a big scale. It's more just flavor. Although I'd have to say the most useful trait on my third brand new character I just started. It's not assassin. She's actually a cyber runner. I chose Neon Street Rat, and that one has actually been effective at stuff, not just being for conversation. I said that a couple times and got a result from it, like, not so I wouldn't have to break in somewhere or get a piece of information, because I don't think Freestar was ever useful. And the United Colonies, which is my combat medic, he is United Colonies. I can't remember his other two traits, but the United Colonies, that's never been useful, functionally useful in anything so far in the game. It's just flavor and conversation.
Yeah, I picked Enlightened, trying to get the the reduction of cost when you're in a certain part of the galaxy at the beginning of the game, thinking, oh, this is going to help me out to, going to help my economy a lot for my character, but didn't really seem to do a whole lot for me. But let's see, what else did I have? It was Enlightened. It was the the Adoring Fan, and the third one. I don't remember what my third one was on my first character, but none of them seem to have a big effect. But like you said, when I picked Soldier, that a few times you get into a combat situational and combat dialogue, and they'll be like, the soldier response comes up. Mm-hmm. So that's a pretty good one. I've had that a few times.
Yeah, it's cool how the background will also have some dialogue options. Like when I chose Long Hauler on my first character, and I was trying to focus on transportation missions, like doing the mission boards, doing transportation, cargo, people. And when I would come across side quests, if it seemed like it was related to transportation, I would definitely do it. And sometimes having that Long Hauler background would have an interesting dialogue choice. But yeah, so on my combat medic, I remembered the other two traits. So I had the United Colonies, because I always liked the idea of being from a place, but then also chose the Hero Worship, which is where I get the Adoring Fan, and then also chose there's that what was it called? Taskmaster, which, let's see. Occasionally, if you have a crew trained in a certain ship system, that system will automatically repair itself. So in space combat, that's actually been useful sometimes. I'll see one of my systems that's like red, just instantly go, full health, which is useful for your shield and your engines mainly.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've never had that. I've got all of my the space combat traits. Is it traits or skills? They're all maxed, 4th level captain, 4th level engineer, 4th level, EM's weapons specialist, all of that stuff. And there's one of them that actually says that once you get to 4th level, that it'll you have a random chance of your ship repairing itself, 10% random chance or something like that. But I don't think I've ever seen it.
Yeah, well, part of the thing is that space battles are so short. I wish they were more dynamic. I mean, doing the Crimson Fleet quest had, the only major quest I haven't done yet is the Ryusian. I'm just starting that on my Cyber Runner. But of all the other quests, the Crimson Fleet one was the one with the best space battle at the very. Have you done that quest yet?
Yeah,
that space battle. Yeah.
On my first vanilla run through, I did all of them. because I wanted to do everything that I could possibly do before I went through the Unity. And so I knew kind of baseline what everything was. And that's about the time that mods came out. So I did everything vanilla my first playthrough, and I tried to do everything that I could find. But then when mods came out, it's kind of that changed everything. Mods changed everything. It's just it just improved the enjoyment of for me anyway. The enjoyment of the game so much, because there was little things that were annoying that mods immediately fixed.
Yeah, as is the case with almost all Bethesda games I learned. I mean, I didn't get into modding until after Skyrim had been out for years, and I finally decided to do it. I kind of felt like, man, if it was if it was so cool, it should have been in the game. And then once I opened that door, that was like Pandora's box. I couldn't shut that door again. And for what it's worth, that's what helps gives these games legs. Now Starfield being the first of a franchise, sometimes it gets a little criticism for just not seeming to be have a lot of depth to it. But I'm like, guys, this is the first game of the franchise. Fallout. There's been several Fallout games, several Elder Scrolls games. So who knows if they'll do another Starfield game? But I think the modding community is going to keep this game alive for a long, long time.
Yeah, I've heard that discussion, and as far as whether it be a Starfield 2 or have they set this up to be able to just continue to drop DLC to progress the story and progress the lore and the legend and all of the background just through expansions. I get those two terms confused sometimes, expansion versus DLC. But I guess expansion just continues the universe in whatever particular game you're playing. This one, Starfield, had the expansion, the Shattered Space expansion, which gave us more lore, more background for one of the factions in the game. And so if they continue to do that, you could see Starfield not really needing necessarily a Starfield 2, because they could continue dropping DLC and they could drop expansion over expansion and change things little by little, and essentially in 5 years have a completely different game than what we started with.
That's actually a really good point. I hadn't thought about that, but that could be an interesting business model for them to explore. Because usually the idea of, you put out a new game, and so then you get to charge full price for a new game. But if they're able to start like adding legit new storylines, that are like, let's say a new faction comes up and they've got a quest that takes 10 hours and then adds obviously like maybe an entirely new ship manufacturer with all the cockpit and the docker, all the stuff, right? Weapons, new power or two, maybe, would all that be worth $20? For example, that would be interesting to see if they just decide to do that. And like once a year, having a new $20 expansion DLC that adds to the game, and just never make a new one, but just constantly update the graphics, keep the game, that one game alive.
Yeah. And once a year, as you were saying, at $20, I think Shattered Space was $30. Is that right?
Well, so when I bought Starfield, I bought like the whatever edition that was going to include all DLC for free or something like that. So I didn't even have to pay for it separately.
Right. But I think it was $30.
Okay.
And so once a year, you get millions of people paying $30, and that's just a huge infusion of cash into your company.
Yeah.
$60, $70 million once a year for a game that's, you don't have to go back and develop a game engine for it. You don't have to update it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
The business model, I could see that being the way to go, because they've still got to come out with the next Fallout.
Yep.
Next Elder Scrolls.
Yep.
So there's still plenty on the plate to play with.
Yeah, and those series, you pretty much need an entirely new game. If you're, obviously you can do some DLC, but eventually you're going to want to go to a new place. Well, Starfield, we already have the entire galaxy. So aside from, like you were saying earlier, adding some stars and some planets that way, add maybe a dozen systems. It it's not exactly. It's understandable there could be new systems that just haven't been discovered yet. I mean, although you would think with analyzing star charts and all that eventually it'd be like, oh, there's a planet right there, and maybe that's how they actually do discover the new planets. They're like, yeah, we realized, like, if we're at solar system and we look over here and we see this star, and then we jump over to the Alpha Centauri system, we realize, oh, that's actually a star we haven't been to before, and so that's how they can realistically populate the universe with more planets and systems over time.
Sure. And I'm not big on holding, the lore to a certain degree of accuracy. I want the game to be fun, interesting, and relatively make sense. I don't have to pay attention to every little nuanced thing. And, hey, you can't have that gun because they didn't have that gun over on that planet, but then they had it on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. A lot of people get hung up on that. And most of the time I can spend about 5 to 10 seconds of headcanon, to have something make sense. I don't need the story writers, and this goes for movies and TV shows. It's like, I don't need them to explain to me every little detail. I'll fill in the gaps, and as long as I can fill in the gaps as a casual player or viewer of a show or movie, then I'm fine with it. If I can't fill in the gaps, though, they might have lost me. But so far with pretty much every Bethesda game, I can fill in the gaps well enough. And at the end of the day, it's a game. Sure, there's story to it, but it's a game. It's meant to just run around, have fun. In the case of Starfield, build a ton of ships, which we haven't even hardly scratched the surface on that. We might have to do that in our next episode, just focus entirely discussing shipbuilding. But yeah, I'm totally there.
Yeah, shipbuilding has been my major boon for this game.
Oh yeah.
When I first started shipbuilding, it was just, I'll scratch the itch by, I'll upgrade the engine, I'll upgrade the drive.
2 hours later.
Well, if all you're doing is just stepping in and upgrading it, because there's that one button where you can go, okay, well, I'm going to step it up to the next class of engine. But once you get into the builder, then you're like, okay, down the rabbit hole we go. 4 hours later, I got to go to bed, man. I got to put an engine on this thing so I can save it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. What's funny is I put off going into the ship, building until about probably level 20. I wanted to get my bearings with the game. And then when I went into the shipbuilder, I didn't even realize just doing that upgrade thing was an option, because I just wanted to jump straight into shipbuilding. And so once I played the game enough and I kind of got a real good sense of the world and the lore and everything, I just went for it. And at that point, I probably had like a pirate ship I had stolen and then remodeled it from the ground up. Just completely deleted the ship and just played with it. But yeah, one thing that's annoying about the shipbuilder is that you can't save a ship. You can't leave the builder if the ship is not flyable. And they have to change that. Granted, we tend to say like, a modder can do that. But no, I think Bethesda needs to actually change that.
Yeah, that's 2 things I would like to ask Bethesda to do. 1, save ships partially through the build. Because why couldn't you have a ship in your hangar, in your base that you're working on, while you have a second ship that you're adventuring in? Makes total sense. Total headcanon works. It all works on all levels. Secondly, blueprints. If I had a ship in one universe, maybe it cost me some money or something, but I would sure like to have a way to be able to go through NG+, land somewhere, and go to a provider that's got blueprints for my last ship. And like I say, maybe it costs some money or something, but you know how difficult it is to spend 6 hours, 5 hours building a ship, and then you get to NG+ and you can't remember how you built it.
Yep. Yeah, because sometimes, especially on those larger ships, you're like, how did I do that? Or maybe there was some kind of a glitch that you used that maybe did get patched out of the game. You're like, crap. Although with the flip merge glitch, they brought that back, thankfully, in the settings. But see, my headcanon way to explain that would be awesome. You know how there's the that Starborn vendor that you can meet. I think you can meet them. Yeah, you can meet them in the first universe, but they don't sell anything to you until you become Starborn, having gone through the Unity at least one time. So far on my main character, after going through the Unity, I haven't come across that character yet. I'm really irritated because I do want to check out their inventory. But what you could do is have the same thing, have a Starborn ship, manufacturer guy, that what he does is he somehow is able to go to a Starborn's previous universe, and since that person's not there anymore, he steals all their ships, brings them into the new universe, and charges you an arm and a leg for the ship. So, you just have to save money, or if you're on console like me, you can just, give yourself a lot of money. But, from a lore standpoint, that would be fun. Because then, oh man, he's charging me 500,000 credits for my own ship. But, I think there'd be some good dialogue, and maybe you can do, quests for him that would, reduce the cost of buying your own ships off of him. But absolutely, there does need to be a way to do that.
Right. And back to that morally gray line on console, you're able to take a ship, you go and you defeat it in battle, and you take the ship. I can't remember what the word is.
Commandeer.
There you go. When you commandeer a ship and you go back to sell it, there's a way that you don't have to register it. And I've been playing that in headcanon as I'm selling these ships on the black market off the side instead of registering it with the UC. There's some other guy that's buying it for full price or near full price. So I don't play the whole registration game anymore. Mm-mm.
Oh, I didn't even know that was I'd heard something about that, but I didn't know exactly how it worked because I usually don't need credits, but wow. Yeah, and it's ridiculous. They charge 90% registration fee. I mean, I live in California, and our registration on our cars at the DMV is not even that bad.
Right? Yeah, I hear you. And that's where I thought it was ridiculous. I spend all this time and effort to go get this ship, and I bring it back, and I make 1,000, 2,000 credits. And the ship's worth 45. I'm like, come on. If registration fees were, say, 15% and you were able to make 20,000 credits on a ship, maybe you wouldn't be forced to go into the black market so much. But the registration costs are way too high to make it viable for ship, scrounging.
Yeah, and that's disappointing. Because on one hand, I think where they're coming from is they don't want you to be able to get too rich too fast. They want to control your credit, your wealth rate, which, okay, that makes sense, but that's way too much of a hit on it.
Mm-hmm.
But see, I also stopped doing ship collecting like that. That was big for my first character. If I landed on a planet and some space, some spacers or Crimson Fleet guys landed next to me or near me, I'd take their ship. But there was a glitch I experienced, and I don't know exactly what caused it, but it's the empty missing crew bug. I did a YouTube video on it on my channel, and I realized after playing for a while, okay, my follower's with me on the ship, but the rest of my crew's not. And I wandered around, and by this time I was level 43. I had my first Class C ship I made, so it was a big, space trucker barge, and there was nobody on the ship. And unfortunately, I'd been deleting all saves except for the last 10 levels. So I had up to level 5, which is when I first was able to leave New Atlantis. I saved anything, I saved that one. And then I was deleting all my saves just because I didn't want to bog my system down. Well, I had to revert to level 5 from level 43. And I was never able to determine exactly what triggered that bug, although best I could find on some Reddit forums, people were theorizing that it was related to stealing ships, because I noticed that the missing crew bug went into effect somewhere where it said something about my door not being accessible. Have you ever had that happen, where you try to walk up to your ship? And I don't know if those are connected or not, but yeah.
Not my ship, but I've walked up to ships that have landed on a deserted planet or whatever, and you run over to try to commandeer the ship, and it says this ship is inaccessible. The same with the Starborn ships, where you can't get into those.
Yeah, from a lore's perspective, it makes sense you can't get into the Starborn ships on your first until you are a Starborn. You can explain that easily, but yeah, I've never had that happen. anymore. Although now I just don't even bother running over to ships, because ever since that bug happened, every ship I make, what I'll do is I'll fly and buy like a Watchdog. I think is one of the cheapest ships you can get. As you level up, the Watchdog 1 is no longer available. It's automatically the Watchdog 2, which has more advanced parts, so it's a little more pricey. But by the time you're upgrading that, you probably already, or yeah, those are cheap enough ships where by the time you're level 10, you can pick that up and you're fine.
Yeah. The the biggest glitch that I had a problem with was the shield glitch. I don't know if you've experienced it, but when the game first came out, you could upgrade your shields, and then I started noticing that my shields were only like 200. They should have been 2,400. And then the next time I get out of my ship and I get back on, it's changed to 900 now. And so there was some kind of glitch that was causing the mathematics for the shield, where it's plus this for you and your skill, and plus this for your crew member and his skill, and plus this for the shield that you're using. And somewhere in there, the mathematics weren't right in the coding. And instead of like multiplying times 2.5, it was like multiplying by 0.025, which was reversing all of your pluses into minuses. And so when you should have had 2,400 shield, you were having like 300 or 250 or whatever it was. And you couldn't even hardly go into battle anymore. And the only workaround was to go back to a base, a ship technician, and there was a way to duplicate your ship. The duplicated ship didn't have the glitch on the shields. So you duplicated your ship, you sold your old ship, you kept your new ship, and then you had full shields again.
Interesting. Yeah, I'd heard of a shield glitch. The only one I knew of, though, or a bug, was there's a guy in Aquila City, if I remember right, who you can have as a crew member that boosts your shield. He's got the shield skill. And apparently if you have him and you've also been ranking up the shield skill in your skill tree, they like inverse your shields down. So I've never taken him as a follower so far, and frankly, I've never needed it. But thankfully, I've never had that shield bug happen to me personally.
There was a lot of speculation when that was going on. This was before Shattered Space, before modding. So this was in the first 6 months of the game. And there was a lot of speculation that, well, it's Vasco is causing it, so don't take Vasco. Oh, no, it's saving when you're in outer space and in your ship. That's what's causing it. So don't save in outer space. So you're trying to like play the game, but then you're trying to play within these regulations and rules. Okay, I can't have that guy on my ship. I don't want to have everybody on my ship at once. I need to make sure to land before I save and stop my game for the night. So yeah, it was just getting to a point where it was like, man, this is getting really frustrating to try to do this. But updates and mods, and here we are today, and it's fun to play. It's many hours later.
Yeah, there was definitely kind of the wild west of trying to figure out what is happening to the game, and going to chat forums and people reading about it. I pretty much avoided the internet relating to the game probably for the first 3 months. Or no, probably not that long, because eventually I did start doing new content on my YouTube channel for the game after I'd played it for a little while. Because I probably went over 2 years without putting any, or no, it had been a while, because I was doing all the Fallout 76 videos, the Atomic Shop videos, and some of my camp builds there. So it was inevitable that I was going to start doing ship builds, But then I started my ship build series, and then I realized, I can't remember what's in each of the habs. And then so I was like, I should just start recording the habs and then having a file on my folder with all the habs. And I'm like, I'm just going to make those as the Hab Showroom series so other players can reference it. And I will go to my own YouTube channel to watch my own videos. Like, what's in that hab and what's on that wall,
That's where you came onto my radar. I knew you as Kinpole on the Fallout feed.
Yep.
Because I've been a member of the Skyrim Addict and the Fallout feed since before Fallout 4 dropped. Or no, before Skyrim dropped. So I've been a member there for, or maybe it was after Sky. Anyway, long time.
Yeah.
I've been hanging out with those guys for a long time. And, you started doing the kin polls with the Fallout 4 and the 76 stuff. And then I saw a couple of videos and I'm like, okay, I'll follow this guy. I'll see what's going on. And you're right. Those are super handy because you're building a ship and you bring up one of your videos, goes, okay, I need a mess hall. And so you watch a 10-minute video that shows all the mess halls and you watch it on your phone and you pick, okay, I want the Deimos mess hall. And you go in, you pick the Deimos mess hall. It's everything you wanted on it. It's super simple. So yeah, what a handy tool that is that you've made for us there.
Yeah, and it's sad. I'm almost done going through the habs. Technically I'm done, but I do want to. I'm working on the cockpits. That'll be my next video, because there's certain cockpits, and I actually have a little spreadsheet that I'll put in the description on the video for people to follow, so they can see where you can buy some of those unique ones. Now, I have the mod that allows me at my outpost to build, the entire ship module inventory is available to me. But the so I want to do the cockpits next, and then I'll do 5 videos where I take all of the empty habs, the custom ones, and based on each video will be per manufacturer, and it'll be all the habs. Because I did notice that there's certain things that are, you think it's just they strip everything out of it, but there's also parts of it that are still there and parts that you think should still be there that they take out. For example, in the Deimos 3x1 living quarters, I love that hab just as it is. It's one of my favorite habs in the game. But the beds will actually still be there, even the mat you can sleep on. But in a lot of the, say, other berths or living quarters, they'll take the bed, the bedding out, and so then it's just a flat surface that you can, if you want to, go ahead and put a sleeping bag back on it, you can. But there's little things like that with the habs that I noticed. And the Nova Galactic ones in particular, that's a sad thing, is above like in the infirmary, there's the lights above the beds, and also in some of the living quarter ones where they have, it's the same light structure that's above the dining tables. Well, in the custom habs, it looks like those are all gone, which is disappointing because that's a really cool aesthetic thing, which you think they could just easily keep in there because it's up on the ceiling. It doesn't affect anything on the ground. And I was wanting to make my own Nova Galactic living quarters, which I like to use as my captain's quarters oftentimes because it has everything you need in there. But I was like, I would like to decorate this a little bit differently. But when I put the empty one on my ship, that thing was gone on the ceiling. And I was still going to put a table right below it because it's an awesome thing above the table, but then it's gone. Like, crap.
Right. And that seems to be, out of all the different mods that I've been playing with, the lighting in this game seems to be one of the real tricky sticking points for modding these things. And Bethesda's done something with the dynamic lighting that it's hard to get a hold of and understand and make it right. A lot of the mods, the habs are super dark, and I like a lit up ship where I can see what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. I like how the certain modules are better lit than others. Like the Hope Tech ones are usually very dim. So I think aesthetically it's cool to have that variance in light. Deimos ones typically are the brightest, but it also depends on the hab. Like certain habs, like I want to be brighter. Certain habs I want to be dimmer, just purely from a flavor standpoint. Like the big battle stations, I like a dim one because I think of, you walk in that battle stations, it feels like you're in a ship or a submarine. So you want your lights dim, right? Even though that actually doesn't make any sense either way. So, but yeah, we'll definitely have to do probably a whole new episode just on shipbuilding because there's so much to dive into on that. Going through the different manufacturers and the classes of ships and preference on what to make and all that.
Yep. And then get into modding and different mods that we enjoy using, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So our general format going forward for our podcast here is we're going to have season 1 focused mainly on each episode talking through a main quest or a major topic. So we'll go through each of the main quests. We'll go one episode just on shipbuilding, We'll have one episode probably on what we think Bethesda should have done different with the games, where we get to just have fun criticizing it and allow all the haters to join us in temporarily hating the game.
Right.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Now, for those of you who are fans of the Fallout feed, and which I didn't even discuss that. We should have discussed that in our introduction about ourselves, because, like you said just a minute ago, yeah, I've been listening to Fallout feed and Skyrim Addict since 2015, because I had met my wife in December of 2014, got engaged in June of 2015, and I had no time to game. I was all about the dating engagement life. And so that was when Fallout 4 came out, and I'm like, I'm not going to be able to play this game. So I had just gotten into podcast listening in general for like Marvel movies and news and stuff, and Star Wars, because that was back when Force Awakens was about to come out. And so I just Googled Fallout podcast. Fallout feed popped up. And so it's crazy to think I've been listening to that podcast for over 9 years. And, Kenneth Smyson was the name I chose. Obviously, my real last name is not Smyson, but SMY are my dad's initials, so kind of a silly, fun thing. I'm the son of Smy. Right. Yeah, Andrew, the host on the Fallout feed, dubbed me #Kenpol. And Jessica Starr, the host on Fallout feed, she started calling me Kenny, which is funny because I have not been known by Kenny since I was in junior high. Now, my mom will still drop Kenny on me, but then when Jessica Starr started calling me Kenny, I was like, oh, well, I guess I have to bring it back. So that's why, because of her, on my YouTube channel, I'm like, hey, everybody, Kenny Smyson here. Jessica, that's all on you. So thanks for that. Right. But, yeah, 9 years of listening to the Fallout feed. Love that. I just love those guys.
I've been a member of their Facebook page since 2016. So,
wow, 8
I don't
years.
know. Yeah.
Where's the time gone?
And it seems like it's been longer than that, because it seems like I started listening to Andrew and the Skyrim Addict right after Skyrim dropped. That was 2011, wasn't it?
Skyrim yeah, that came out in 2011. Yeah, 11/11/11.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe. And so they had been out for 4 years, and by then they only do about one episode a month now, so they might have been doing more episodes way back then. But yeah, those are fantastic shows to listen to. And of course, Jessica Starr is now hosting, what's it called?
The Starfield Lorecast.
Yep. Yeah. So
Robot Radio.
Yep. So it's been fun listening to her, and I haven't even started listening to any Starfield podcasts yet. And so once I saw that she was hosting that one, no offense to the guys that had been on it, I just wasn't really interested in listening to Starfield podcasts yet, partially because I was wanting to make, my own. But with her heading over there, I've gone back and listened to some of their episodes, and those are fantastic hosts over there. So I guess on one hand they'll be missed, but at the same time Jessica's taking over, and she's absolutely amazing at all her content that she does with the Bethesda games.
Yeah, she's been a superstar with those guys, and she's really coming to her own. She's everywhere.
Yep. You can't get away from her. She knows everybody, and she's connected to everything. So, alrighty, folks. Well, I think that's going to wrap up our episode here. Yeah. Now, you know how on TV shows the first episode, it's called the pilot episode. I think I'm just going to title this episode the pilot.
The pilot.
Might as well call it the pilot. It's perfect name for it. And but other than that, folks, take care. And any last comments?
You guys have a great week, and cherish the ones you love.
All right, we'll see you in the Starfield.
Well, that was some fine work under pressure.
Get out of here, Dusty. You're on to bigger things.